Welcome to your weekly Leadership Principle by Coach AJ and the mentor team at Martin County PAL. At Martin County PAL, our goal is not discipline, it is growth. We meet youth where they are and help them develop into healthy, productive leaders for the future. This week, the conversation focused on taking responsibility for your life and your choices.
Yeah, and sitting in the room this week, watching this deep dive into ownership unfold, it was just wildly apparent that giving teenagers the reins might be, the only way they actually learn to grow up.
Right, which, if you tell a parent to give a teenager absolute control over their life, that sounds completely terrifying.
Oh, total recipe for disaster in most people's minds.
Exactly. But the energy in that room, it was fascinating because we were right in the thick of the midsummer slump. You could feel it the second you walked in.
But yeah, it was loud, totally chaotic. Kids were just slumped in their chairs, bragging about sleeping until like 4 in the afternoon.
Right. There was this collective sluggish dread about the August 10th start of the school year just sort of looming over them. They were entirely comfortable in that lazy rhythm.
Yeah, just typical summer banter, entirely relaxed. And then Coach AJ stepped up and just threw out a question that completely derailed all that sluggishness.
He really did. He didn't ask them about their summer at all.
No, he just looked right at them and asked, what's something that you're responsible for that nobody knows about?
And the shift in there was instantaneous. Like, you could have heard a pin drop.
Yeah.
As an observer, just watching these teenagers process that prompt, it was heavy because society looks at them and just sees kids, right? We see the summer banter, we see the messy room.
We see what's on the surface. But in that silence, it became glaringly obvious that so many of these future leaders are already carrying these like adult-sized invisible burdens.
Yeah, totally invisible.
We are talking about kids who go home and act as emotional buffers between fighting parents.
Right, or kids who are practically raising their younger siblings because, their guardians are working double shifts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Some are physically taking care of sick relatives. They're bearing this immense weight entirely in the shadows, and they aren't asking for a shred of credit for it.
Which forces you to completely reevaluate what you think you know about them. And Coach AJ, he just let that reality settle in the room for a minute, and then he immediately challenged this massive assumption we all make.
Yeah, the assumption about where responsibility actually comes from.
Right. He asked the group, is responsibility something adults hand to you? And naturally, almost every head in the room nodded.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
I'll admit, I would have nodded too.
Oh, 100%. We are culturally conditioned to believe that responsibility equals the chore chart on the fridge or the curfew, or just rules imposed from the top down.
Yeah, that top-down model is how we operate. But Coach AJ completely deconstructed it. He told them that adults can only take away choices. Like, a parent can take away your phone, or they can take away your ability to hang out with friends. But responsibility, that is strictly an internal decision.
It's an internal posture.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Nobody can force you to be responsible, and no one can take your responsibility away from you.
Let's just pause and unpack that for a second because it radically changes the power dynamic in a house.
It really does.
If responsibility is something I hand to a teenager, then I hold the power and they are just, a subordinate completing a task for me.
Right.
But if responsibility is an internal posture, they hold the power. Coach AJ reframed it not as this heavy burden to bear, but as the exact specific mechanism that moves a person from dependence to true independence.
Yeah, he essentially told them, if you want your life to be your own, you have to stop making excuses, stop blaming your environment, and just take ownership.
But the challenge there, and we saw this in the room, is how teenagers actually define independence.
Right. Their definition is heavily skewed toward rebellion rather than real autonomy.
Yes. And that distinction became incredibly sharp when Coach AJ brought up the reality check about vaping.
Oh, man. That part of the session was incredibly raw.
It really was, because teenagers often pick up a vape because they want to project sovereignty, right? They want to look cool, rebellious, untethered from adult rule.
They view it as this fiercely independent choice.
Exactly. And Coach AJ didn't lecture them on rules. He just exposed the brutal irony of the biology behind it.
Yeah. He pointed out that in their desperate quest for independence, they are actually hardwiring themselves for total dependence.
Right, because of the biological mechanism. It's insidious.
It is. Nicotine completely hijacks the brain's dopamine pathways. A youth thinks they're making this gold, sovereign choice to vape, but within weeks, their brain chemistry literally alters.
Yeah, suddenly they aren't choosing to vape, they are chemically compelled to.
Exactly. They become a slave to a little plastic device. They have to hit it when they wake up, before they eat, when they get stressed. They have willingly handed their autonomy over to a chemical habit.
And they are handing over their physical freedom, too. You know, the conversation touched on popcorn lung, which sounds almost cartoonish until you understand the physical mechanism of what's happening.
Yeah, the chemicals in those things.
Right, like diacetyl. It literally scars the tiny air sacs in the lungs, the alveoli. It causes irreversible thickening and narrowing of the airways.
Which is terrifying.
It is. You have 15-year-olds walking around with the oxygen exchange capacity of a 75-year-old with chronic bronchitis. Where is the independence in not being able to walk up a flight of stairs without gasping for air?
There isn't any.
Mm.
It completely shatters the illusion of rebellion. Because true rebellion against a system isn't destroying your own biology. It is having the discipline to own your future.
Yes.
And Coach AJ drew a direct line from that internal discipline to tangible, real-world autonomy, specifically focusing on jobs and financial independence.
The way he handled the concept of employment was fascinating to watch. He looked at this room full of kids, most of whom, desperately want to make their own money.
Right.
And he made this highly specific promise. He said, if any student brings him 2 fully filled out job applications on a Wednesday, he will personally go to those businesses the very next day and vouch for them.
Yeah, he put his own reputation on the line for them.
He did, but the psychology of why he asked for filled out applications is brilliant.
Oh, it completely shifts the dynamic.
Yeah.
Because if a teenager just walks into a store and asks a manager, are you hiring? From the employer's perspective, that youth is a liability.
Right. The manager has to stop what they're doing, manage the interaction, figure out if this kid is serious.
Exactly. They have to assess risk.
Yeah.
But if a young person walks in with a completed application, the psychological framing completely shifts.
Yeah, it signals to the employer, like, this person takes initiative, they are prepared, they solve problems rather than creating them. It's the concept of over-delivering, right? Doing more than the baseline requirement. And Coach AJ didn't just teach the concept, he actively modeled it in that very moment. I mean, it is absolutely not in his job description to spend his Thursdays driving around town, advocating for teenagers at local businesses. But he showed them that when you do more than you are required to do, you create your own success.
He put skin in the game. But, and this is key, he made it abundantly clear that he wasn't going to do the heavy lifting for them.
Oh, yeah, he was very firm on that.
He wasn't going to print the applications, and he certainly wasn't going to fill them out. The support is completely available, but only after they make the internal choice to act.
Which raises the million-dollar question, right? If the blueprint for autonomy is that clear, take ownership, reject false independence, over-deliver what stops them from doing it.
Yeah, why do so many youths remain paralyzed?
Exactly. And it comes down to the internal baggage they carry into the room.
Yeah, and Coach AJ brought up this really powerful analogy about a dog.
Oh, that was so good.
He said, if you get bitten by a dog when you're young, your brain creates a very specific association. From that point on, you don't just see a dog, you see the trauma of the bite.
Right. You anticipate the pain before the animal even moves. Let's dissect how that actually works in the human brain, because it explains so much of the behavior we see from these kids.
Yeah, the neuroscience behind it is huge.
It's the amygdala, our brain's threat detection center. It's a pattern matching machine. Its entire job is to keep us alive by recognizing past threats in our present environment.
Right.
So if a child grew up in a house where an adult was, say, unpredictable, demeaning, or abusive, their amygdala codes authority figure as a threat.
Exactly. So when that youth walks into a new environment, whether it's the center with the mentors or eventually a workplace with the new boss, their brain is already flashing warning signs.
Yep.
They look at Coach AJ or a manager, and they literally expect to be bitten. Their amygdala is preemptively triggering a defensive posture.
They react to the ghost of the person who hurt them rather than the reality of the person trying to help them right now.
Yeah, which is tragic, but it's a survival mechanism.
Right, but Coach AJ's challenge to them was intense but completely necessary. He told them, you cannot let the world dictate your reactions. You have to set your attitude before your feet even hit the floor in the morning. You have to consciously override that primal instinct and decide who you are going to be.
Because if you let the memory of a past injustice or, even just the driver who cut you off in traffic dictate your emotional state, you have handed the steering wheel of your life to a stranger.
Exactly. And watching the youth process that realization was profound. If they control their attitude, they control their trajectory. Nobody else has the keys.
Yeah, but As I sat there watching these kids fight their own biology and their past traumas to take ownership of their lives,
Yeah.
it forced a really uncomfortable pivot in my own mind
About what?
regarding how we operate as parents.
Oh, yeah. I'll be the first to raise my hand and admit I've struggled with this. Because if these kids are fighting this hard to grasp ownership, we have to look in the mirror and ask if our parenting strategies are helping them in that fight or actively sabotaging them.
Yeah, and that's a tough pill to swallow.
It is. I want to look specifically at how we weaponize responsibility in the home.
Oh, it is so easy to fall into that trap.
So easy.
Like in the heat of the moment, a kid talks back or they miss curfew, and our immediate reaction is to use chores as a penalty. You yelled at your sister, so now you're cleaning the entire garage.
The neurological impact of doing that is disastrous.
Totally.
When we link a household contribution to a punishment, we are physically rewiring how their brain perceives responsibility. We cause their cortisol levels to spike and their dopamine to drop.
We're chemically associating the act of contributing to the family with shame, anger, and penalty.
Right. We unknowingly strip the dignity out of the work, and we train them to view responsibility as a burden to be avoided at all costs.
We accidentally teach them that ownership is a punishment for failure, rather than a tool for their own independence.
Yes.
We have to stop being the barrier to their growth just because we want, a convenient way to penalize them in the moment.
And I'll push that even further. We need to look at how we project our own trauma responses onto our kids.
What do you mean?
Think back to Coach AJ's dog analogy. The kids project their past hurt onto new mentors. Parents, are we doing the exact same thing to our children?
Oh, wow. That is a harsh reality to confront.
It is.
Because we do pattern match our own kids.
Yeah.
If your teenager lied to you 6 months ago, or if they tanked their math grade last semester, do you look at them today and only see the failure?
Right. Do you walk into the kitchen expecting them to act out?
And if you approach your child expecting them to fail, your tone of voice, your body language, your preemptive nagging it, all sets a toxic attitude for the entire house.
You become the dog expecting to bite, and your child is just backed into a corner waiting for it. You are functionally locking them into the exact behavior you are demanding they change.
We really have to give them the grace and the space to grow out of their past mistakes. But that requires letting go of our own preconceived resentments. And part of letting them grow out of their mistakes is actively modeling how to handle failure ourselves.
Yes, and there is a moment in the session that perfectly encapsulated this. Coach AJ, the man running the room, the ultimate authority figure in that space, stood in front of those kids and openly admitted, I make mistakes every friggin' day.
Yeah, he didn't hide behind his title.
Not at all. He didn't blame traffic or stress or someone else. He owned his humanity.
Which fundamentally changes the dynamic when an adult models vulnerability like that. It shows the youth that taking ownership doesn't diminish your authority. It actually authenticates it.
Right. So I have a very direct challenge for the parents listening.
Okay, let's hear it.
When was the last time you delivered a real apology to your child?
Oh, a real one.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't mean saying, I'm sorry I yelled, but you were making me so angry.
Right, because the word but completely negates the apology.
It's a blame shift. It teaches them that their actions are someone else's fault. If we want to raise future leaders who don't lean on other people to take the fall for their bad choices, we must show them what it looks like to stand in the mirror, own the flaw, and say, I messed up, and that is entirely on me.
Understanding the psychology behind all of this is great, but, intellectualizing it doesn't change the dynamic in your living room.
Yeah,
We need practical application.
absolutely.
And based on what we saw working in that room, there are 2 highly specific actions parents can take this week.
Let's give them the first one.
Okay, first, initiate a conversation about those invisible burdens we discussed earlier.
But how should they approach that without it feeling like an interrogation? Because teenagers hate that.
Right, right. Find a neutral, quiet moment, maybe when you're driving in the car together, where you don't have to make intense eye contact, or just sitting around after dinner,
Okay.
and ask them the exact question Coach AJ asked the room. What is something you feel responsible for that nobody else knows about?
That is such a powerful question.
It is. And here is the crucial mechanism for this to work. You just listen.
Don't jump in.
Do not interrupt. Do not try to solve the problem, and absolutely withhold judgment. Let them speak, validate their reality, and let them know you see the weight they're carrying. It builds a massive bridge of trust.
I love that. And the second action is my challenge regarding unapologetic ownership.
Right.
Sometime this week, I want you to intentionally catch yourself making a mistake. It doesn't need to be a massive moral failure, it can be small.
Like what?
Like you forgot to run the dishwasher, or you snapped because you were stressed about work, or you double booked a weekend schedule. When it happens, confess it to your child out loud.
Just own it.
Look at them and say, I messed up and that is on me. I have no one else to blame. Show them what it looks like to be someone with no excuses, because if they see you actively taking ownership of your life, they will be infinitely more likely to take ownership of theirs.
Thank you for taking a few minutes to invest in your child's growth. If this message resonated with you, I encourage you to subscribe to our channel, like or comment on this episode, and share with other parents who care about raising strong, capable young leaders. If you would like to learn more about Martin County PAL or are interested in supporting or partnering with our program, please reach out. This work only happens because of people who believe in meeting youth where they are and helping them grow into who they can become. We appreciate you being part of that mission.